Members from the council meeting with regards to putting this out for submission. I'd like to say that there's been a lot of hard work went into preparing this, and a lot of good intentions, and the desire to do something good for the city is certainly there. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's not free parking. When everyone complains about the base and Chartwell Square being free parking, it's free all day, anytime, 24 hours, that's free. 2 hours is not free parking. It's 2 hours free parking, it's not free parking if you want to talk about the complaints with regards to free at the base and Chartwell. And it's not free either because we're going to have to subsidise this. I've heard a lot this morning with regards to the meeting, the mention of leisure shoppers. And those that are complaining about the free parking at the base are leisure shoppers. They want to go out there and take as much time as they want shopping around. And this is going to do nothing to stop them complaining about parking in the CBD. Workers shuffle. There's a lot of mention about the workers taking up the car parks. Why? Why are they taking up the car parks? They're taking up the car parks because it's expensive to park for workers. They don't have a choice to come into town. A friend of mine, their boss decided to move into town. She doesn't have a choice. She has to pay for that parking out of her income. And it's not a great income. It's an average income, and she's got to pay anywhere up to about $45 a week for off-street parking. What's more, those workers, a lot of them are ratepayers. And you expect them to pay the subsidy on their rates and spend 8 hours a day in town and get nothing for it. If they weren't shuffling their cars around, they might be able to shop. The cost of parking is the issue. It's not a case of it being free, and the off-street parking is where a lot of the cost is. It's expensive to spend the whole day in town, especially if you have to work in town. Fines and penalties is the other one. The technology that is being introduced sounds great, it's really good for monitoring, but there is going to be a lot of people that do not realise that 2 hours is the whole CBD. You are going to drive people out of the CBD by saying you can only be in here for a maximum of 2 hours, and that's 2 hours per family or per car, not per person. My husband, who works in Huntly, he does not work in town. He comes into town for his hobbies. He has some wargaming and everything. He comes in, he thinks at the moment that every car park is for 2 hours. Paid or unpaid, he thinks that the parking is for 2 hours per car park. There is a lot of people who have no idea that it is not for per park, and they are going to get stung. And it's a great way to get revenue in, but it's going to cause ill will with the public when they suddenly start getting extra fines and infringements for having been in town for more than 2 hours. It's the wrong message to send, saying that you can only be in town for 2 hours. If this is to go ahead, I think you need to actually look at the bylaw that changes, that says that that's 2 hours anywhere in the CBD in a 24 hours. There needs to be something done, or there is going to be a backlash from people as they constantly get pinged from accidentally being in town for more than 2 hours, whether it was them or their partner. Sorry, the fines and penalties that the targeted rate has been asked to cover, there's still going to be fines and penalties. We're still going to have people that are parking for more than 2 hours, so that revenue is still going to be there. It shouldn't be factored in as a replacement cost if we're actually still generating that revenue from parking infringements and fines. And the other thing, the biggest reason that I have, that's the parking side of it, the targeted rate and the paying for it. My issue there is the fact that there's been other targeted rates mooted. We already have the gardens, there's talk of the Founders Theatre replacement, the zoo, the wheelie bins. You can't just keep adding one on after the other and expect us to keep ticking them off. Give us all of them at the same time. If this is how council wants to raise funds, give us all of the targeted rates and let us choose which ones we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. We'll go to questions. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, and thanks for your passion, Deborah. I really very much appreciate that. You raised some great points. The worker shuffle issue, I guess it could be argued that it was put there to try and mitigate that. What would be your ideal in that situation? You talk about the people who come into work. Where should they park, and how would you also retain space for people to come in and casually park?
Look, ideally you want them off-street, but the problem is it's unaffordable on the average income to pay $45 a week for off-street parking. You can get cheaper, but then you've got to travel for half an hour walking because the buses don't necessarily go in those directions. The public transport system isn't what it should be with regards to getting people from park and rides or from cheaper parking into the CBD. Ideally, yep, get them off the street, but you need to give them some way to do so. If you expect them to pay in their rates for their parking, then allow them to have 2 hours free parking off street. You can't expect somebody to pay for this and then say, oh yes, but you get to spend 8 hours in the city and not have any access to it.
Right. So just kind of think of our limited parking stock, and I think we've got the underground car park. I think there's only a couple of other small ones that we actually have any control over anymore. So I'm just trying to work out where, where you would suggest.
But your own stats showed that the parking is available. It is there.
Yeah, just a little bit further out, right?
Yeah. So if you can get them into different areas with better transportation and better bus routes and better orbiters or shuttles or whatever it is to get them in there, then by all means. But that's not sufficient at the moment. I mean, my friend, for example, she has an employer who very kindly lets her skip out if her daughter has a sports event or something on at school. The extra time it takes to get to her car is an issue for her employer, allowing her to have that extra time off just to go and do something for her family. Having to walk another half an hour to and from a car might mean the employer says, no, you can't do that. So I feel that the workers have been blamed when the parking is still there, even if the workers are taking it up. They're still not taking up all of it because the figures show that there's parking available. Okay. So it can't just be the workers that are causing it.
Right, thank you.
Sorry.
No, good.
Councillor Mallett.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Deborah. You raised a point about the fines and fees and the costs, and I guess it's a question through you to the staff, if you don't mind, because you raised a really good point. I just want some clarity on it. I assume that the revenue we're trying to replace is our best estimate of the actual fees we get, the legitimate fees, plus on top of that, the fines we would get. Is that the revenue we're trying to replace?
Meter money.
It's not just meter money because...
No, that's what you're asking.
Yeah. So is it meter money plus the fines? Yeah. Okay. So we will... So that's what we're going to replace using the targeted rate. But of course, under the new scenario, once there's a targeted rate, there will still be fines income because not everyone's going to be right, are they? So if we factored in that, in actual fact, there's a credit coming back if we go to the new system, in that additional fines won't stop. So the targeted rate could be possibly overstated, or would by definition would have to be overstated unless we didn't have a single fine under the new system.
We probably, it's okay for you to get an answer for your first question, but I think we're moving into deliberations and discussions, but Julie's nodding that she'll note that and we can pick that up.
Okay, so that's a very good point. Is that what you...
Yeah.
Okay, now the other one I just want to ask about, tease out a bit, is I've heard this park and ride scenario. Park and ride, I assume, would work okay from the pickup point because everyone's going to go to a amalgamated car park somewhere, and you could have a shuttle bringing them in. But of course, everyone works at a different place. So the park and ride back is going to be a lot more difficult, isn't it? To collect everyone from each of the workplaces, or I suppose you have to have a collection area, but the collection area, your collection area is defined by where the park is in the morning. At night, when you're picking people up at 5 o'clock or 5:30, you'll have to be some space made up. So how does that work?
But you currently have a system similar to that already with the shuttle that runs around town, shifting people from one end of town to the other. The only problem is it doesn't go near the car parks.
Yeah.
If you had that shuttle service running near a park and ride and around the CBD and around the car parks, you'd probably find a lot more people using it, because then they would actually be able to jump on a bus and get to work instead of having to walk half an hour into town.
So that's even under our existing scenario, that could be tidied up? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Deborah. Debbie?
Thank you, councillor. Thanks very much, Deborah, and again, apologies, we're running so over time. I appreciate you coming to talk to us. Right, now we're on to submission number 362, Sonia Thurston. Welcome, Sonia, again, apologies. I know you've been waiting for a very long time.
Sorry, so staff are going to bring us back, I mean, I might be wrong, but some analysis on that, whether or not the fines...
Yeah, no, that'll all come back through deliberations, and we can capture, we'll do around the table at the end of today and make sure that these questions will be covered off in that report.
Thank you.
So, welcome, Sonia, and we're in your hands.
So I'm actually presenting on behalf of the Waikato Environment Centre, not myself personally, and we are opposed to the parking proposal on the grounds that free parking promotes the increased use of private motor vehicles, which contributes to the production of greenhouse gases and the knock-on effect with climate change. It is also an active disincentive to use the alternatives, cycling, public transport and walking. If people are paying a targeted rate towards free parking, they're likely to think, well, I'm paying for it, I may as well use it. And it also punishes those who are already using alternative transport or through choice or otherwise can't take advantage of the free parking. Particularly lower income people, who they'll be affected by the rate increase, and they're most likely to not be able to afford a car or the running of it. And the main reason that all of these issues are a problem is because it's contradicting council's own policies and principles by contributing to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. So the council in 2016 adopted the sustainability principles to guide their decision making, and in 2015 signed the local government leaders' climate change declaration. That declaration committed council to develop and implement ambitious action plans that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and states these plans will promote walking, cycling, public transport and other low carbon transport options. In relation to the sustainability principles council has adopted, in particular principle number 2, council uses its position as a city leader to educate and influence the wider Hamilton community to embrace sustainability. We don't feel that this proposal is showing any leadership to the community to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Principle number 4, council agrees to work with central government to deliver on national greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and supports resilience to climate change in our communities. Again, encouraging vehicle use through free parking is contradicting this principle. Sustainability principle number 5, council promotes walking, cycling, public transport and other low carbon transport options. Council has done a lot of good work in this area already, and to encourage vehicle use would seem to be contradicting that spending and all the good work council is already doing. Council's environmental sustainability page on the website states that council has committed to embed the principles into the operation of Hamilton City Council. Sustainability isn't just about the environment, it's also about economic and social impacts. Obviously the loss of revenue that's predicted is a negative economic impact for council, and the knock-on of the proposed solution to that by targeted rates to across the whole city has an economic impact on all ratepayers. The increase in vehicle use, if you're encouraging that through free parking, also leads to greater wear and tear on roading infrastructure, which is another cost to council for upkeep of roads. Increasing vehicle use obviously creates more air pollution, which has a social and economic impact regarding health, particularly respiratory problems, and also not only the health costs of dealing with that, but often reduces attendance at work or school, which has another social impact. More vehicles also create more congestion and makes it less safe for cycling, again, further discouraging alternative transport options. Waikato Environment Centre encourages council to follow through on its own commitments and principles by dropping the proposed plan for free parking and additional car parks in the CBD.
Great, thank you. Councillor Mallett.
Thanks, thanks, Sonia. Yeah, I applaud you for highlighting where we're busting our own rules. We supposedly live in something where the rule of law matters. Do you, and I've said this a number of times, the CBD parking plan is just a means to an end. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure we all accept that. And that end is to try and revitalise our central business district. Are you supportive of that? Ignore the means, just the end.
Yes and no. So
thank you.
yeah, the argument could be made that from an environmental perspective, it is better for people to shop closer to where they live, which places like the Base and Chartwell and the smaller shopping centres like in Rototuna that are popping up. That is encouraging that, and particularly as the population growth has been huge at the north end, and we would suggest that that's a contributing factor to why people are using those facilities rather than coming into town, not just because the parking is free.
Yep. Okay, you did give an yes and a no. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, and obviously your submission is noted. Just a slight clarification, and I stand to be corrected, that when the Mayor signed the local government leaders climate change declaration, she did that in her own capacity as Mayor. She did not seek endorsement from this council. Personally, I agree with the declaration, but so in fairness, the City Council cannot be held to account for something the Mayor did not seek the approval of her colleagues in signing, right? But I do stress, I think the vast majority of councillors will support that declaration, so your point is noted. She didn't sign it on behalf of the City Council, all right? If you sign on behalf of council, you have to come for ratification. That never happened. And also, if I can ensure, with regard to our sustainability panel and the issues we had the other day, the Environment Centre also included on the mailing list for that exercise that we're currently doing. I get that. Can I just ask, where you say improve biking and walking connections by high quality separated infrastructure and traffic calming, that basically is just trying to get the balance between slowing traffic down, looking at shared cycleways, pathways, or how does that?
So overseas, particularly in Europe, they have a lot of cycleways that are safely separated from vehicle traffic, and safety, or the feeling of safety, is a major contributor to why people don't cycle more. And the current cycleways for commuter cycling in Hamilton, a lot of them are, they're on road. Often there's cars parked in them. There's usually queuing at intersections or over the top of them, and intersections are the most, probably one of the most dangerous sites for cyclists, where a lot of the accidents happen. So there are different options. One could be shared footpaths that are shared with pedestrians. The other is some kind of barrier on the street between the cycle lane, or moving the parking to the outside. So it goes footpath, cycle lane, then parking, separates you from the moving traffic. That's obviously, you've got doors opening, so that's, yeah.
Two more questions, I guess. What your submission, I think, is you are supporting investment in technology that actually improves the way in which we monitor central city parking and demand pricing, that kind of thing. Have I got that right? Because that obviously requires an investment away from the old sort of chalk and cheese where you mark a car tyre with a bit of chalk.
Right. It's depends on what the technology is. I don't necessarily agree with the proposed solution,
Right.
but if it discourages vehicle use where other options could be used, then we support that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you so much. That was a great submission and great points. Just one question, just following on from what you said before. So if we made a safer biking, do you think then that it would revitalize the city? There would be more people coming into the city?
I think it's one solution. I think there's a lot of solutions, and I think leaping straight to a free parking proposal sort of excludes exploration of other solutions. So I think it would help encourage it.
Thank
But
you.
it's not the only solution.
Right, great. Thank you very much for taking the time to share your views today. Right, we're on to the next submission, Tina Boyd, and this is submission 364. Welcome, Tina. Thank you. Right, we're in your hands.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, the Mayor, Hamilton City Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. I am Tina Boyd, as you know, the Centre Manager at Chartwell Shopping Centre. Chartwell is against the paid parking proposal as outlined in the Council 2017-2018 proposed plan for the 2 free-hour parking on the street. The reasons why we're objecting to this is because Council requires that developments of various sizes provide on-street car parking at a significant cost to create and maintain, of which street retail is largely exempt. Chartwell has been a long-standing part of the retail community in Hamilton, and I've just done a count, 43 years we've been here, since 1974, so this year's our 43rd year. It contributes to the community economy and in a significant manner. Chartwell provides 1,095 car parks as part of its development and is required to provide staffing, maintain and look after these car parks. As well as that, we also provide security for these parks too. The introduction of free parking to the CBD does not involve Chartwell or its retailers. Both street retailers and CBD shoppers benefit from the free parking in the CBD. Chartwell obtains no benefit, but in being required to pay additional rates, we're thus subsidising other businesses in the CBD. Chartwell Shopping Centre consists of a variety of some 120 retailers, of whom will bear the additional proposed costs. These retailers are a huge benefit to Hamilton and its residences, and they have businesses in this community. We recommend that Chartwell becomes exempt, if this does go through, of having to pay for the free 2-hour parking, and that Council do not pass on the costs associated with parking in the CBD directly to the businesses in Chartwell Shopping Centre, giving CBD businesses an unfair advantage, having their parking subsidised by other retailers that are outside of the CBD. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Very clear submission. Councillor Mallett.
Thank you very much, Tina. I don't know what Hamilton City Business is association, but just to be clear, who do you represent?
Chartwell Shopping Centre, who's owned by Diversified New Zealand and Stride Property.
Okay, thank you. So quite clearly, you're concerned about favouritism, so to speak, the City Council picking out one group of businesses to have a form of subsidised car parking for its customers, clients, whereas you over there don't get any subsidy in that account.
Well, as I mentioned, as part of being a developer, we have to provide these parks for our shoppers. So we've already paid what we need to pay. We provide these for our shoppers. We have ongoing costs for these car parks to provide them. So in a sense, we don't think that we should be subsidising other retailers in other areas to provide car parks for them.
So you've got a double whammy. You've already paid for yours, plus you've got to pay for someone else's as well. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you. Councillor Casson.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. long association with Chartwell Square, as you know. So you've talked to your retailers at Chartwell Square, and you've got a indication from them as to what their feelings are?
We're talking from a capacity from the owner.
Oh, okay.
So we haven't talked to the individual retailers, but anything that makes their what they have to pay go up, they always are against that. So I'm sure if we go around talking to all our retailers that they'll be all fully behind this. But this is from an owner's perspective only.
Okay, cheers.
Deputy Mayor?
Got this. I mean, obviously, all your tenants, they pay for the parking because it's included in the rent and all of that stuff. So they provide parking via the fees and rents they pay. What you're saying is that you would say the CBD owners, through the rates rental, would do the same. Is that what you're saying? But you don't expect to be levied?
I don't expect Chartwell retailers to be paying for the CBD parking, but the way it's calculated and worked out is really up to council. I'm not saying how it should work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. Tina, isn't it?
Yes.
So we've had a number of people in this room today say that free parking won't do anything. It won't be any benefit at all to the CBD. You seem to be saying that you do think it will benefit CBD retailers?
No, I didn't say that either. I just said that I don't think that our Chartwell retailers should pay for free parking.
No,
so we shouldn't have
you didn't say
additional
that.
costs.
No, you said you don't think you should pay for something that will benefit CBD retailers.
I'm not sure if I've worded it in that way. I just said that it's unfair that we should pick up the cost for free parking for CBD retailers.
Okay.
Because essentially we're paying for parking already
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
for our shoppers, so I
Yeah.
don't think we should
Yeah.
be picking up costs for parking for other retail businesses.
It sounded like you pretty clearly felt that it was going to be an advantage to CBD retailers, didn't you?
No, that's not what I said. I just don't think we should be paying for the costs of their parking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Andrew?
Provide off-street parking for the people who work in your shops,
We provide parking within our shopping centre for them.
so everyone who works in the shops gets a park.
They can, yeah, we've got an area that they pay $2 a day that we've set aside for retailers. And they also park around off-street as well, which the council closely monitor.
So the people who are parking on the streets outside the complex who work in the shops, is that not a council subsidy where you're parking, your people who work in your shops are parking for free on our streets, and isn't that a form of subsidy?
No, because there's plenty of parks for them to actually pay on site if they want to. It's their choice where they park. So it is available for them to park on site.
So there's enough parks for everybody who works in every shop?
Well,
You
well-
provide at $2 a day?
I wouldn't know exactly how many we need because retailers come and go as in like how many staff on each day changes with their rosters, but I know that those parks aren't full in at capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, Councillor Southgate?
Sorry, just got off and pondering upon that. Chartwell, a couple of years ago, not all that many, doubled the capacity for parking on site for shoppers, didn't it? So you would have borne the cost of that complete development?
Yes, that was our 2010 development when we extended farmers and the retail, and we added new underground parking at that same time.
So how many parking spaces?
And then we did a car park building that's outside Hukanui Road, which added in parks as well.
Yeah, that's right. So it was quite a substantial investment from Chartwell.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, thanks very much, Tina.
Okay.
Thank you for waiting. Right, our next, I can't see him in the audience. Thomas Gibbons, are you here? No? No, he's not. Okay. Peter Boss, you're here? Welcome. Peter's submission's number 403. You're very well versed in our... Yeah. Thank you.
So what I will be starting with is from last week. Just I wasn't happy with the way I answered some of the questions, so I'll repeat some of how I feel I should have answered them. That's okay. That's fine. Okay, thank you. Yep, so the buttons there. So last week, eliminating traffic fatalities is not aspirational. It's as real as Hamilton 2001, 2014, 15, and again 2001 on state highways in Hamilton in 2008, 2015, 2016, New Zealand Easter 2012, 2013 Queen's birthday. So having our roads free of death is not aspirational. It's a real. It's real. And 200 cities in Europe prove this.
Sorry, Peter, you are submitting here on the annual plan, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
I am.
Thank you, just clarifying that.
And the second question I wasn't happy with the answer I gave is how to limit traffic deaths. This is for Access Hamilton, and this is the annual plan. So life and health can never be exchanged for other benefits in society. Place safety above all else. Put safety first. So you've got a very good health and safety policy in your council, and this is just ask you to take all reasonable practical steps shall be taken to eliminate and minimise the risk. What I'm asking is don't put your name to the regional 2040 plan of having 38 people killed per year on our roads. Don't make regional target of 38 your target. Make Hamilton's target 0, like 22 cities in the United States, soon to be 36. Again, how to eliminate traffic deaths? Make a demonstrable commitment to continuous improvement in health and safety. So that's the answer for some of those questions. Now I'll go on to parking. This is more about a bit of a history on parking. The district scheme, which is in 1960s, it's similar to the district plan. Basically, it said your parking problem is your business. Council was responsible for traffic flow. In 1990s...
Sorry to interrupt you. When it says your, did it mean to the individual or to the council?
The individual, the owner of the car, the owner of the business. In the 1990s, your parking became 50% council's responsibility. And now it looks very much like your parking is 100% council's responsibility. The cost of the value of a car park in 1991, the town plan, which is the same as the district plan, put a value of a car park at $20,000. That's in today's money. In 2012, your district plan valued a car park at $20,000. In 2014, the cost of building a car park was $23,000. The value of the car park was $11,000. You've halved the value of a car park. The 2006 Access Hamilton plan, park and walk building in Knox Street, $10 million, or $10.6 million. In 2009, I'll read the newspaper headline, car park buyback vital for council's plans to revamp the CBD. 2009, ratepayers spent $10 million buying back a car park. In 2010, new car park for staff and students at Nibbis Street, $5 million from taxpayers. The 2010 Access Hamilton plan, parking placed above all other benefits. Parking was put on the list, on every list that was put together in all the documents. In the last 7 years, 7 deaths in the CBD. Every year, someone will die.
Are those traffic deaths?
Yes, road deaths. On our roads, yes. So, Remember safety first, safety always. Think safety starts with you. That's the end of that PowerPoint. Now, that's fine, I'm finished.
Thank you, Peter. Questions, Councillor Mallett?
Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Just clarify, the 7 deaths
Yes.
were traffic-related deaths in the CBD, or is that within the city?
Within the CBD area, just the CBD area. No, if you...
What period was it?
7 years, 2011, actually it's 6 years, 2011, 2017. That's the ones I've noted.
Oh.
And there is also a second NZTA put together a black spot map, and if you focus on Hamilton, the centre of Hamilton is the most dangerous place in the city.
For being killed in a
For
car
traffic,
accident?
Traffic accident. It's all road users.
Councillor Tooman.
Thanks, Peter. You can probably remember back in 1999, the central government made a target of no more than 300 dead and 4,500 people injured by the year 2010. Do you remember that?
I don't remember them giving a target.
Okay, well, it was a target. And in 1999, we had 509 people killed on our New Zealand roads, and I thought, God, we'll never ever achieve this target. And yet, in the year 2011 it was, we actually had 284 people killed on our roads.
Yes.
You've asked us today here not to actually put our signature to the 2040 road safety strategy of having no more than 38.
Yes.
Do you believe that people have to have targets to work to?
Yes.
And if the target is such that you don't think you'll ever achieve it, it makes it real difficult to achieve that, doesn't it?
The target is achievable.
Of 0?
Yes.
Okay.
We've achieved it. We've achieved it a number of times.
Okay. Great, thank you.
We've achieved it a number of times.
Okay. Thank you. There are no more questions for you, Peter. Thank you for your submission. And final submission for today is Thomas Gibbons, and he's speaking on behalf of the Property Council. And this is submission number 449. Thanks for coming back, Thomas. I know we've run terribly over time today.
Such is democracy.
Yes, indeed.
Kia ora koutou, thanks for having me here. I'm lucky last, so I won't take up 10 minutes. I'm used to only talking for 3. I am a bit sweaty. I had to run through Garden Place, and and then in fact I got held up by traffic in Garden Place for the first time ever. So just to make that comment. Look, one of the interesting things about the internet, and I know this is live streamed, is you can look up old stuff. And I got on my Facebook feed a little while ago, really interesting story about the abolition of milk bottles in 1989, or milk news in 1989, which is a very important year in local government. And Judy Bailey was talking about how the price of a bottle of milk, because it was a bottle in those days, was 65 cents in Auckland, 60 cents in Wellington, and 55 cents in Christchurch. And I wouldn't be the first person to say that, look, of all the issues the city is dealing with, central city parking is unfortunately not the most important one. The discussion I've heard has been, it didn't sit through everyone like you have, but a number of people said there are bigger issues going on of a range of types, and I heard some of the other speakers, very interesting ones. But look, of all the issues facing the city, enabling growth, acknowledging growth, getting people into houses, having a safe city, there is a danger we just debate parking year after year after year, as one of the other speakers alluded to, and use up valuable council time deciding whether milk bottles should cost 55 cents or 60 cents. Parking is important. Property Council has put forward a broader plan around the CBD based on 6 key principles. One of them, Hamilton City Council being more of an enabler, a CBD master plan, an empowered urban design panel, better research and data, which would tie in with better technologies, and establishment of a CBD board, as well as an economic development agency. CBD board could in fact help make decisions over Garden Place, CBD parking and other issues, It could be more flexible, enabling a different, more innovative approach to how parking works, more innovative approach to implementing the Central City Development Plan. We don't need to be one size fits all about parking. We could look at how Hamilton Properties fits into this, how it plays a role in making those kind of decisions. It could still be, as a CBD board, a CCO reporting to council, helping make some of these decisions, getting some more community and private sector views involved in a different forum to one like this. That kind of CBD board, I think, could help constrain rates increases. It could be more strategic, could be more sustainable, help avoid the same issues being discussed year after year. I think I made the point clear. The city issues are broader than just parking. It's limiting to have annual plan discussion focused on one narrow issue. We have put in our written submission the Property Productivity Commission report, diagram 5.8. We've brought this to some people's attention before. Importantly, this shows that Hamilton City gets a lot of its revenue from development contributions, far more than other councils. How Hamilton taxes development or relies on DCs, how it raises its money, how it spends it, where this comes from, how sustainable it is, how long term it is. And I think I'm the second youngest speaker I've seen today. How sustainable it is very important for the future, how we manage growth. All these things are much more important, thanks Gary, than the price of milk bottles or the price of parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. We'll go to questions. Councillor Taylor's up first.
Thank you. Thomas, you mentioned the CBD board. It's been on the agenda for a long time now, because I can remember us talking about it a year or so ago, and there doesn't seem to be is it just some sort of phantom or dream, because it seems like nothing ever happens with it?
That's probably a question for the council. It's a good one.
Well, it's a question for you too, because you were talking about it back then, and talking about talks for the CBD association with it.
So we've put together a paper around that, happy to send it round again. I think the view we came to is we had sort of two questions back to us from councillors. One of them was show us the detail and how would it work. We've certainly done the how would it work paper, happy to send that around. The detail's a bit of a tricky one, because I think if there's a conceptual barrier to that, if there's, let's say, 10 councillors in this room who thought CCOs for anything were a terrible idea, for example, there's probably a question mark about whether it's worth putting in the work around the detail. But if there's a willingness to have that conversation, we're more than happy to continue it. We do see it as playing a much broader role than HCBA, and I think a lot of positives could come out of that. Just to give an example, if a CBD board is doing parking, it might say, as I said in the paper, $12 here and $2 there, because one area is higher demand. Yes, council could do that, but another CCO type organisation could probably be more flexible and innovative without the political risk around that.
Thank you. Councillor Southgate?
I think you probably have just about answered the question I was going to ask. In the short term, do you see it being useful to extend the life of the task force group around parking to look at those more holistic parking issues? I know that you're saying there's bigger issues, but you're presumably going to talk to us ahead of the LTP with some of those wider issues as well.
One would hope so, yeah. So thank you for the question. In terms of the task force, I think it's good to have those. There's some people I know out in the community who are a little bit cynical about them, because there's been rates task force and things before where the concern is unless there's a strategic momentum behind them, they don't last long term. I guess, what I would say is it is a good initiative to have different voices on those kind of task forces, so I definitely endorse them. Giving them some teeth is a good idea, making sure they have broad balanced private sector, community sector representation is important, but giving them the teeth to make decisions is absolutely key, and making sure that they can go on long term rather than revisiting the same issues again and again. That would tie in with some of the things I've said in this chamber before, which is the strategic outlook around what the city's doing is very important for people making decisions out there.
I got the impression from what you said that integrating the parking conversation in with the wider transformation of the CBD and business development was the preferred approach?
Absolutely. So obviously a year or two ago the Central City Transformation Plan was launched, and if you look at the totality of that, Property Council didn't support every single line of it, but as a concept definitely supported a lot of it. had some ideas on how that could be delivered, including the CBD board. But there is a danger if you look at parking as one issue isolated from the broader issues. There's a danger. I think you spend a lot of time looking at one issue without considering how that relates to broader issues of city revitalisation, what redevelopment is going on, development contribution remissions and the importance of those, incentivising development, a whole range of other issues the CBD faces.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mary Andrew.
Development levies are taken for infrastructure expansion and for no other reason, and they're worked out where they're taken from an area to cover the costs strictly around that area. How is that a tax? And why are you calling it a tax when you know otherwise?
It's a colloquialism, I'll accept that, but
Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Can I
Thank
answer
you.
the question?
Oh, no, you said you accept that it's not a tax, so...
I said I accept it's a colloquialism, and what I was going to say is that, yes, Property Council has a view that it's misused at times by council.
How is it misused?
Property Council has the view it's not always used in a lawful way.
So you're saying we're taking money in an unlawful way?
I'm saying some of our members have concerns that the policy or the implementation of the policy or the model is not always used in a way in accordance with the Local Government Act. That's a concern that's been raised. I'm not saying I have the absolute answer on that. I'm saying there's concern among the members.
Why aren't you taking some action on that if you feel that strongly about it for your members?
It's not solely my decision. We have an executive committee that makes decisions, but different members of our organisation will have their own views at times. Property Council will obviously have to take a particular decision on particular issues. And in this instance, we're aware of our member concerns, but as an organisation, we haven't acted on them. We haven't impeded them from acting on their own account if they have concerns they wish to raise.
I would have said that, implying that it's a tax and implying that it's being misused of very, very serious allocations.
They are. So what I've said is it's a colloquialism to call it a tax, but it's basically a cost developers have to pay. Different councils have very different views about the way that is made up. Some councils have very different development contribution policies to Hamilton. That's simply a fact. It is a cost developers have to pay, and that colloquial sense it's a tax in the same way as, the US Supreme Court would have a debate over whether a healthcare levy was a tax or not. Yes, it's a colloquialism. I don't see anything wrong with using the term as a colloquialism. Many of us use colloquialisms all the time. But it does have an impact on development, definitely, and the incentives to development. And yes, there are members who have very clear concerns about Hamilton City's development contributions policy. These have been discussed at times with staff, perhaps been alluded to in some of the presentations I've done before, but I can't recall exact concerns I've raised, but these issues have been raised before. We obviously make efforts to work collaboratively with Council about any member concerns. We have a number of meetings about various issues, but my role is as branch president. I can't impede or stop a member having a view on what the development contributions policy, where it sits in a legal sense. They're entitled to those views.
I think you need to be a bit more responsible coming to this chamber, making statements like that on behalf of your organisation. Thank you.
Was that a question?
Thank you, Mary Andrew. Councillor Mallett.
Thanks, Thomas, for your submission. Just on the issue that you were just addressing then, we went through, and you were involved in that, and I was involved with it, and some other councillors, Rob Pascoe was involved with it, Julie was involved with it. So is there still, obviously there's still simmering concern, using a colloquialism there, simmering concern, that we haven't got it right?
Yes, there is that concern, and again, it's something we're going to continue to work with Council on, because we want to have that conversation, absolutely.
And it's important you guys have a voice in that, because it's
Well, it is important, and look, we're well aware there are only a limited number of sources of local government funding. That's an important issue facing the city as it heads into the long-term plan, and how you fund growth and pay for growth is, look, it's a critically important issue for the city. Developers are happy to pay their fair share, where they perceive or see that it is unfair and developers are bearing too big a load, or businesses or entrepreneurs are bearing too big a load. They're entitled to make that view clear.
Okay. Is there how do we do that? How do we get that clarity and that trust?
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah, okay, so we went through that process last year, and it wasn't perfect, and it didn't really end, and I never quite figured out that we got an answer to the thing, but we did try, and I appreciate that it was flawed, but is there another way we can do it?
Yes, I think there are probably some mutual frustrations about that process. I think keeping the dialogue up is important, but I think it's important to have an open mind in those discussions. So I think, again, there's a concern at times that your conversations are had for the sake of conversation rather than the sake of looking for a solution.
So you can say you've had the conversation and...
Yeah, that's a concern. Look, it may be completely off base, but it's a concern that's raised at times, that you can have a discussion about this or that, and it's ready to tick a box that a conversation's happened. But I think people are really willing, as are people in this room, to look at innovative solutions about what we do, and it isn't about whether this is right or wrong most of the time. Most of the time it is about how do we work on a solution. So you do want to look forwards on those things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just picking up on, just before I go to the Deputy Mayor, Thomas, there's a substantial difference in having something right, which was what Councillor Mallett's questions was about, and suggesting that council's acting illegally in any way, and that concerns me. On behalf of the council, if you're willing, I'd like to ask the CEO to just give you a call offline and discuss that.
That's fine.
Fairly serious.
For the avoidance of doubt, thank you, Chair. I'm not making a suggestion of illegality. I'm saying there are concerns among some members about the policy. That may include its legality or otherwise. People may have a view on the fairness, which might be quite different from the legality of it.
Okay, you didn't qualify that statement was about the specific policy, so I was just trying to make sure I understood that correctly. So I'll still go ahead and do that. I think
so to clarify, if I can, the specific issue raised from my point of view was about the development contributions policy, and I was responding to a specific question about development contributions and how that policy sat and different perceptions of it.
Thank you. All right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, obviously, for your submission and the work the Property Council is doing in our city. Just 3.6, obviously, loud and clear that you still see that the path of travel is some form of CBD board, subject to sort of, I guess, appropriate agreement with all the key stakeholders to get that up and running. And if I'm hearing rightly, still the exact form is something to be worked through in terms of a detail.
Well, I think, that's a fair assessment, and I think the difficulty is we could prepare a template and a budget and so on, but there's very little point in doing that completely independently of a discussion with council around that, because it would just be an idea. Until you're actually talking a bit further about how we might progress that idea, I guess the question is it just wasted effort on our part? We've done a certain amount of effort into putting the paper together, looking at the structure, looking at comparative examples, how they might work. More than happy to share that, but there's no point in just pushing the issue if it's off the radar, I suppose.
The other sort of couple of the other key stakeholders, assuming you're still working with them on that?
Yeah, we have been talking to various people and continue to talk about it. At the moment, look, a lot of our CBD work is focused in other areas as well. So Garden Place is obviously something people are paying a lot of attention to right now, and what that looks like and what it means. But the CBD board is one of the things still on our radar. and it seems a useful link into the idea of parking.
Because obviously that collaboration, there was a lovely picture last year in the business news, was, with the three heads of the organisations, which, pitch 1,000 words, all of that stuff. But in terms of that synergy, I guess, just, the key players working
Absolutely, and
yeah.
yes, there's another member of our executive who's heading up that CBD initiative.
Yeah.
So he's continuing to work with others, as is our subcommittee.
Now, this is not honestly intended to be a provocative or trick question. You say direct, without political interference. This is 3.6, and you've heard today the number of submissions from what would be the customers of a CBD board in terms of the shoppers and that. How do you sort of get that mix where you devolve, the council devolves stuff to a CBD board, but again, ultimately the CBD board is still accountable to the stakeholders and the ratepayers.
Correct, in the same way, I suppose, as other CCOs work with that accountability in place, reporting back, perhaps, freeing up some time in the chamber for other things. Yeah.
No, thank you. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you very much. There are no further questions, and thanks for coming back and taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you.
Right, very long day today, well over time, and I want to, if some of you have seen the email from Judy McDonald, I just want to run a couple of ideas past you on that. But now we'll have, just very quickly, we'll have staff jump up to the table. Now we cannot move into deliberations or debate at all. So just, I've got a couple of things I'd like to see for information to come back in that deliberations report. So we can do that sort of round the table list. But if there are any questions on just the report and the analysis of the submissions without getting into the substantive discussion, then staff can do that for us today. So we'll take the report as read. Are there any questions on the analysis that the staff have done on any of the submissions? Councillor Mallett?
Page 9, we've got and if I'm reading this right, so if we go to, first of all, can you tell me what paragraph 40 means?
One of the questions we asked on the questionnaire was for people to indicate the organisation that they were representing. Yep. And a number of people did, 47, yep. And the majority of those, when we looked at that list of those organisations, a number of those, the majority were actually businesses located within the CBD.
Okay, thank you. So we go to paragraph 43, I just want to make sure, of the 74 responses, 42% thought it should be funded by a proposed rate. So that's 42% of 74.
Yes.
Sorry. So 42%.
So that's 31 people.
Okay, yeah, 31 people. So that was about 16 and a half. Sorry, it got down. So that's 6.9% of the actual 449.
I haven't got my calculator in front of me.
Okay, well, so
yes.
I just want to make sure.
31 of 449.
Yeah, I've done these calculations. I want to make sure I've got them right. So 31% of people, 31 people of the 449
yes.
people or responses. So that's 6.9%, 7%.
Yes.
Thought that it should be funded by a proposed targeted rate. Okay.
And that, just to clarify, that was the proposal that was in the parking proposal, which was the 90% Access Hamilton and 10% CBD.
Okay, and 16% of the 74, which 11.8%, which 8 people, which is 12 people, which is 2.6% of the 444. So in total, only 9.5% should suggest that it should be funded by, I think, if I'm reading this right, that it should be either funded by a targeted rate or a general rate.
That's correct. Your math.
So it's a very small number of. Okay, so is this a situation where kind of the only people who are going to respond are the people who don't want to pay the tax?
I think that's a deliberations question.
Oh, okay, all right. So the reality is only 9.5% of the people who responded were supportive of any form of rate increase to fund free parking in
Yes,
CBD.
and that's laid out in table 45, paragraph 45 in the table.
Yeah, I couldn't follow that table.
Okay, are there any other questions on that bit? I have a couple of things before I'll kick off the round the table. Sidebar question.
Well, it is a sidebar, and I think it probably comes under our workshop with regard to sustainability actions. And it was really interesting that the Environment Centre, and look, don't misperceive the spirit of the statement, where they're quoting to us, an article signed by the previous mayor, and that's her right as mayor, but then getting the impression it was signed on behalf of the City Council. And I think it would be quite good through our sustainability workshop to tighten some of that up. So I think I'm proposing, and personally I'd be endorsing it personally and wanting to develop, as the sustainability panel was, and Sustainability Waikato Environment Centre, other interested groups, just to give some meat on the bone, so to speak. But I think it is important that we have a situation where we're either agreeing with perhaps a mayoral statement or not, and I think that probably goes off into the workshop. But what I'm trying to say is people are under the impression, and this is
So if I
if
can
the
be
mayor
helpful,
signs something, it's the council, not necessarily.
So Deputy Mayor, it was raised during this, so staff can, and this is annual plan stuff as well. So staff can respond to that. I
Yeah,
think
so I'm
that's a really
suggesting
good
we put
idea.
that across to that other piece of work that we're doing through and that relates to the article, the item that was in our.
So it may be that you'll respond through the report that it will be picked up.
Well, what I'd like, perhaps could I suggest when we do that workshop, we actually talk about those issues. That's all. Thank you.
So we've made a note that we'll pick that up in the
so I'm sure you've got quite a
workshop.
list, but there's just a couple of things that raised questions for me. One of them was Rochelle Knapp's submission. She raised, and a couple of the others did today, that the proposal is at odds with our district plan. Can you provide some comment around that?
Yes, we've noted that. We'll come back
You've
to
noted that one, great. Another one that I had was that can you pull out how many submissions talked about CCTP, but in the respect of, like, this proposal is one thing that we want to do to revitalise the CBD, and the CCTP is actually all about revitalising the CBD. So I'm just trying to get some kind of a bit of a link there. So does that make sense on that one? Jeff Krieger talked about, and I'm familiar with the Lower Hutt, did a similar proposal, but he also talked about Porirua and Rotorua and New Plymouth, and just perhaps a couple of lines on those ones, whether they're still going, little bit of information. I apologise if that information actually probably, some of it went through the task force and you had discussion, but just for refresher would be great.
Noted, thank you.
Thank you. Another one that I had, I just wondered, Roger Hennebury for grey power, and it was has been raised in some of the other submissions, because again I remind the committee we've only actually heard from 11% of submitters, so we have to give appropriate weight to the other 440 odd submissions that we've got. I wonder if we could have an example, because he said in his home he's going to be, it's not the $26, it's going to be the $80. So, and I know we've done it in the past, particularly around LTP, but when we're going to do something, we just take a couple of homes from different areas across the city and work out exactly what that rate's going to be.
Yes, we can do that.
You can do that? That's not too, and it only needs to be a couple of, a dozen and a half, just spread. Yeah, maybe not.
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Yeah.
Would you also like us to provide an indication of a couple of examples of businesses in the CBD, and, for example, a business in Chartwell and the base?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Okay. Yep. Now, in that same submission, Roger Hennebury raised the issue of the tenancy, and I don't have any understanding of that. So he did raise it
Yes,
here.
he did, yes.
I would like a little bit of information, and possibly some other elected members would be interested in that one as well.
Noted, and we'll bring that back.
You've
as
noted that one,
the
great.
annual plan.
And just let me have a quick look at any of the ones that I read. And I don't think there was anything else. Oh, a lot of submissions talked about the lack of evidence. Well, not a lot. Some submissions talked about the lack of evidence, and not just from submitters today. So I think it would be helpful to just have a little bit of information on what the task force has done and what they have looked at, to be fair to that process.
Definitely, we can add that in.
And Rod Bowman, and I apologise, because normally I'm pretty good at writing my notes, he asked a question, and I can't remember what it was. I'm sure you noted it, because he was first up, and he said, I wanted it asked today. And I said, that's not the process for today.
Yes, he asked a number of questions. He wanted clarification on whether it's a targeted rate or a fixed rate. If it's a Access Hamilton targeted rate, will it be impacted by the annual increase in rates?
Oh, okay.
Was it for 10 years only? And fines. So a number of submitters asked about fines as well, so we'll clarify that in the report.
Okay, all right, great. So that's my list. Who else has Councillor Southgate, do you have a list?
Thank you. You've asked some of my questions actually.
Well, they weren't questions, this is for the roundup for the deliberations report.
Yeah, I know. My questions of staff to bring to help me.
Yes, yeah.
So you've already addressed some of them. So I'm also interested in a sheet that shows the percentage of ratepayers that are paying more than the 26. I know it's the it's based on the average, right? And the percentage paying less than 26, just so we can kind of get an indication of a top end, low end, middle end range of impact. Nancy Cager talked about the 1.4 million being a little bit confusing as whether it was over that 6-month period or the year period. Do you remember?
It's a 9-month period, isn't it? I think she got that wrong.
Well,
October to...
Yeah, so I want the correct, whatever interpretation of the 1 million or what period is to be spent off. And it would help me to have an assessment of any ongoing annual costs over a period of time, at least 3-year period that the next round of the LTP would cover, because I don't think it's going to be helpful for me to just know what it might cost in year one. Right, so just that, and there was something around demand management, but I can't remember how I was going to frame that.
Was that wasn't one of the submitters who said that we were, and not breach is the wrong word, but we were, what's the word?
In conflict?
Yeah, in conflict with our demand management plan, was it that?
It was something along that. I wrote down and highlighted it about demand management, and as an area I needed to have some further understanding.
Was Jeff Krieger?
Brought
that up.
Yeah, so probably when you look through the commentary it'll be clear, but I do need to understand how the proposal relates to what we know the demand management is and is likely to be. Just, I think that's it for now. You know what it's like after a long day, you're mulling a lot of stuff in your head. So if I have anything else, I'll come back.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Southgate. Deputy Mayor?
Just, I think you might have already covered that. I think when some submitters talk about all this assistance we're giving to the CBD, just making sure that we have a broad narrative, because obviously there's been huge ratepayer, taxpayer investment, petrol tax in the base development in Chartwell in terms of the ring road, the arterial system. If we look at the evolution of Chartwell over many years, there's been significant consequential ratepayer spend in terms of the roading network around there, and even if you look at the land value versus capital value and look at the rates that they pay compared with other shopping precincts in New Zealand, and the shift, we're trying to get a fair rating system, and this is not honestly wanting to get a tit for tat at all. And I do hear what they say around the parking issue in terms of that they effectively provide the lot. They provide parking. They don't have a ratepayer subsidising for free parking. I get that totally. And I get that they do within their precinct, supply a lot of stuff, absolutely. But I think we do probably, shouldn't forget respectfully that particularly with our major shopping areas, you know, that there's still significant ratepayer investment around the roading infrastructure
Deputy Mayor,
and
are
all
you
the
sort
other
of
stuff.
looking for something around
Well, I just,
wanting an
it's
idea
not
of-
wanting to, it's not intended as a
No,
he said,
no, no,
she
no.
said, but it is just trying to making sure that we do get the balance right. And all I'm trying to say is it's not just the CBD that attracts, you know, all of these shopping areas pay rates. I get that, absolutely. And I would argue, just as the CBD rates are returned a lot into that CBD area, likewise, a lot of the rates that come out of our other major shopping precincts are also returned into those areas of benefit because of the huge investment we do collectively from a point of view of roading and infrastructure. If you didn't have the ring road, tell me how Chartwell or the base would be,
Yes,
for example.
okay.
Sorry,
So I
Chair,
think-
could I ask for some clarification? We need to
Yeah.
understand what you want us to come back in the
Yeah.
deliberation report.
Because, Deputy Mayor, are you looking for some idea of sort of council investment in those other areas in terms of
I
strategic
am just to have
infrastructure?
what I call informed discussion, and it's constructive informed discussion. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about all this money we're spending in the CBD, but other shopping precincts get significant investment.
So perhaps to try and help, perhaps as an idea, I believe, gosh, if I can remember back, council invested, maybe Chris remembers, quite substantially. I know Tainui did, the base did, but in, say, the lights at the base, I mean, that's significant investment. I don't know. That's what I sense the Deputy Mayor's sort of going. So whether you can provide some context a little bit around that. I think that's what it is. You may or may not be able to provide some commentary around that one. Okay, so who else list? Councillor Henry?
Yeah, I think it was also Jeff Krieger, he said something about the NZTA, and now I don't know whether they've made specific statistics or anything, but he talked about overestimated car park. So, and that meant in terms of spending, have they got something there in specific writing what they mean by, how much they overestimated?
He mentioned a report that had been commissioned for NZTA. We can request that report and circulate it to council if we can.
Yeah, that would be quite interesting to see how far they overestimated that, because we could think that it's so important to have these car parks, and then they might not be as important, or they might be. I don't know.
Okay. Anything else on your list?
No, that's it.
No.
That's
okay.
it.
Councillor Mallett?
Thank you. The chap, Malcolm Barrett, from who manages the farmers building and lots of stuff, and started talking about the price of car parks and whatnot. Also was concerned about the impact of our move from land to capital value and how that increases the cost of development, I suppose. I just would like, is there any indication that there's any, I mean, yes, there's no doubt that capital value rating increases your rates as you develop your capital, because that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So there's nothing wrong with that. But he sort of implied that would deter future development in town, even though there's a massive development going on in his own
Could we
property.
suggest that this is must be a bit of a wider discussion that you need to have as part of the LTP and looking at your overall strategy? I know council was presented a reasonable amount of information when you deliberated on the move from land value to capital value, and maybe we could request that a report comes back as part of the briefings. The LTP.
And you can reference that
Yep.
question that
Yes.
Councillor Millet's raising in the report, so that we have an actual action that comes out of it. Yes.
He just had a different point of view,
He did.
you know, or looked at it from a different angle than
Yeah.
most of the other people did, which I thought might have some interest. But having said that, I don't agree with him, I don't think.
Can I just suggest that perhaps rather than a formal report, that we just refer the matter to the Finance Task Force to consider when they're looking at the various kind of funding mechanisms, that it's probably just something to pick up in their brief, so it might not be a report specifically.
As long as it doesn't get lost, yep.
Yep.
All right, that's it. Nobody else has anything for the list. I'm sure you've got a really long list, so... Yes, no, I'll do that when we close the meeting. Yeah, well, I probably do. All right, so with that, if members can just stay for just a couple of minutes and we'll discuss our timing and stuff of today and bounce around ideas, but I'll formally close the meeting. Thank you very much, staff.
Process, keep the meeting open,
Okay,
because we are
sure.
talking about process.
True.
Then it becomes part of our record for future.
Good idea, okay,
guidance.
but staff, Julie and Jason can go. Oh, yeah, sorry, what, I'll move that the recommendation, which is that the council receives the report on page 7, moved by me, seconded by councillor Tooman. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Okay, so councillors, thank you so much, and Mayor Andrew, for your patience today. We ran quite a bit over time, and you would have seen we've received an email from Judy McDonald, who stayed for as long as she could and had to go. There's a couple of issues. One is, and I'll talk to staff after about our timing slots, because as I understand, each person's told to come within a slot, and then when they get here, we've sort of given them the 5 minutes, and we ran well over time. And I could keep everybody bang on time, but then you usually have a go at the chair when that happens. We would have to be in complete agreement. So open to suggestions, because we were sort of expected to finish around 12:30. So I don't know, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because I don't want to cut anybody off from questions, and I think the questions were really great today, or submitters. So open to ideas, but I think it's something we all have to agree upon. Yeah.
We just made some notes because we were looking at the time. And that in that first hour slot, we got through 6 submitters.
Yeah.
So that is about 10 minutes per submitter, and it tends to be 5 minutes for them speaking, and then about 5 minutes
questions.
for
Yeah.
questions. So, yeah.
We weren't going to. Okay, yeah. Let's just have a conversation about this. Would be more helpful, I think. Oh, okay, all right. So, Councillor Southgate, can we not have a team chat with? Can you not pick that up? Oh goodness. Okay, that's okay. Not your fault. So.
So we have to do this on camera too.
Oh yeah, we're discussing it on.
This is a constructive exercise.
Yeah, we
how
are.
we can
So
help.
that's why I was kind of hoping we'd just have a chat.
Then just.
No, we're still on.
This is just through the chair. It's a reflection on how we can
Yeah.
fine tune our process.
So ideas.
Easy public
So
stuff.
Councillor Southgate.
Thank you. So I'm a great fan of a fair and reasonable amount of democracy for people. I think it's really hard for people who don't manoeuvre in this arena very often to understand how that works, and to even know how to time their main points and all those kinds of things. We're here to serve the public, so I would be more lenient with the time, to be honest. And I think, although it's annoying for councillors to find that they're finished early, or maybe there's a gap between a bunch of submitters, which is often happened in WRC, we'd truncate it and then we'd have like half an hour up our sleeve. Well, that's so be it, because we're here to serve the democratic interests of the public. So I do think, there needs to be a more generous allowance with some buffers. And the buffer, which is just an 8-minute break for morning tea, or 35 for lunch, is not buffer enough, because sometimes unexpected things happen. Or the thrust of the questioning is so important that from councillors that you've got to allow it to continue as a chair, and you shouldn't be sitting there feeling, any chair shouldn't be sitting there feeling uncomfortable about managing the process. So me personally, I feel you need to give them a little bit more of a slot. And I think we need to work harder with the submitters that are arriving, so they understand that there's a margin either side of their speaking slot that might happen.
It's managing their expectations.
So that if we knew we were going to be an hour and a half or 2 hours late from Judy's point of view, one of our staff needed to say that so she could go away, come back, do whatever. Or we just need to be a bit tighter with the scheduling. But I'd prefer that the councillors ended up twiddling their thumbs because they had a bit of unexpected free time than to compress the submitters.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Mallett.
Thanks. I think that's fine. And obviously, on a day we had a whole lot of submitters, you'd probably have to be a bit tighter. But I agree with Paul. You want to listen And obviously, it's my assumption that organisations, you know, I think they get slightly longer than an individual submitter, and perhaps just build in a wee bit better timing for, you know, questions from us, which we always do, of course, and never do comment. And I agree with the longer lunch hours as the buffer. With regard to Judy, I think there is a couple of opportunities between now and when we do finalise our AP, where she could be privately given the opportunity to see if she'd like to come along for 5 minutes at the beginning of a particular committee meeting to do that. So I think we can try and make amends to Judy, because in fairness, Living Street's an important organisation, and we do feel for her having to, you know, obviously wait around then go.
So I guess a question for me, possibly on behalf of the other chairs as well, is, I mean, I agree with both of those things, but I think both of those things, with the exception of today, we do that anyway, and we've done that in the past, but in my experience, things will always run over time unless when the bell dings, the chair says, right, we're stopping it. So I just need to understand from a chair's perspective, we are always, in my experience, going to run over time, no matter how much buffer we put, so are you happy? Because I can jump in when the bell dings, but usually the elected members don't like that. And it's.
I feel for Judy McDonald and one or two others who had to wait around, and if we can accommodate them, but in terms of atmosphere and democracy, I personally prefer where we actually went a bit across the line, because I've also been in rooms where the bell's gone and people have been, it's not good atmospherics. No. This is our annual plan, and this is where we, as a collective whole, hear a submitter and give courtesy to the submitter, because what we've gleaned from today is some really interesting, excellent material discussion from our point of view, and we're grateful.
But we've only managed 20-odd submissions today.
And I believe you ran it well. I think that there was insufficient buffers today, and I just wonder, we need to be honest with ourselves. And I do mean creating buffers of free space. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I completely understand.
So, you know, because we can go off for another cup of tea, do a few more emails, do all kinds of things in a buffer. Shop. The men can go shopping because they love shopping.
They do.
With our town planners.
So there is all that, but I think we need to take some ownership and be honest, because it isn't always a run over of the submitters. Sometimes it's the length of time that people take to do their questionings. Absolutely. And sometimes it's like a court of law with sort of inquisitorial back and forth, you know. And that takes time, does it not?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Thank you. Mayor Andrew?
Yeah, I think the 5 minutes and the 10 minutes that you're allocating, 10 minutes for organisations and 5 minutes for individuals, is fantastic, and it puts them under a bit of pressure when the bell rings. And you were doing really well as a chair. You didn't cut anyone off, you let them finish, but they knew that they had to wrap up.
True. Yeah.
But when you look at the scheduling today, we only actually allowed 5 minutes a speaker.
Yeah.
And I think that if that was pushed out to 15 minutes a speaker, so still only 5 minutes, still time them, still have the bell ringing, but if you allowed 15 minutes a speaker, that allows for about 5 minutes of questioning, and, you know, there'll be unders and overs, but I think that the scheduling's the problem, not the way that it was run.
Yeah, because I think you make good points, because people were waiting, and that's what we're all concerned with, is that members of the public coming to talk to us, and because it doesn't matter about our time, that's for us to manage, but...
I mean, when you actually look at the scheduling, it was never ever going to ever happen when it was 5 minutes given to speak, and we're only given 5 minutes total for them to get to the microphone and leave and ask questions. To be fair on
staff that put it together, that is how we've always done it in the past. We've sort of, but for whatever reason now, I don't know. I think...
Just to clarify, the speakers are told that they actually have 5 minutes in total, which includes time for councillors' questions, and we suggest they stop speaking about 3.5
But
4
people
minutes.
don't, yeah.
But they don't. And I think it's great that the councillors ask so many questions.
Yeah, okay. All right, great, thank you very much. Thank you.
To you, Madam Chair, because, I mean, no, it's not an easy number, and we do congratulate you. I think you did really well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. And thanks to staff for staying all day.